one with silence, the mystical dissolution of self. In the vast expanse of spiritual seeking, there exists a paradox that has captivated mystics across traditions and centuries. The closer one approaches the divine, the more language fails, perception dissolves, and the individual self seemingly vanishes into an ineffable unity. This mystical experience transcends ordinary consciousness, carrying the seeker beyond the boundaries of thought and into a realm where distinction itself becomes meaningless. The dissolution of perception. When the seeker's perception approaches that which we call God, the ultimate, or the absolute, something remarkable occurs. The very instruments of knowing, our senses, thoughts, and conceptual frameworks, begin to dissolve. This is not a failure of perception but rather its transcendence. The boundaries that typically define our experience start to blur, and the rigid categories through which we interpret reality become fluid and eventually meaningless. In this dissolution, the mind reaches its limit. That which perceives cannot perceive itself, just as an eye cannot see itself without a mirror. Yet, in the mystical experience, even the distinction between perceiver and perceived evaporates. What remains is not darkness or absence, but a fullness so complete that it appears as emptiness to the limited mind. The paradox of divine knowledge. Those who proclaim to know God with certainty reveal only their distance from true knowing. Authentic mystical knowledge carries with it a profound humility, a recognition that whatever can be articulated about the divine is necessarily limited, filtered through the prism of human understanding. As the Tao Te Ching reminds us, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The mystic comes to understand that divine knowledge is not accumulative but subtractive, not adding more concepts and theories, but removing the veils of conceptual thinking altogether. In the Christian mystical tradition, this has been called the cloud of unknowing, a state in which the seeker approaches God through a loving intention that surpasses intellectual understanding. The silence beyond words. Words fragment reality into manageable pieces. They are tools of distinction, separation, and categorization. Yet that which is truly unified cannot be fragmented without distortion. This is why, paradoxically, silence often becomes the most eloquent expression of mystical realization. When perception dissolves into infinity, what could possibly be said? The mystic does not return with new information, but with a transformed relationship to all information. Their silence is not empty but pregnant with meaning beyond articulation. As Rumi wrote, silence is the language of God, all else is poor translation. Mistaking the map for the territory. Those who speak with certainty about God often mistake their mental constructs, the maps they have created, for the territory itself. These shadow projections of the mind may contain elements of truth, but they are reflections at best, distortions at worst. The fingers pointing to the moon are not the moon itself. In recognizing this, we understand that religious dogmatism often represents the crystallization of direct mystical experience into fixed doctrine, the living water of immediate spiritual perception frozen into the ice of belief systems. The mystic seeks to return to the source, to drink directly from the wellspring, rather than accept water bottled by others. The path of desire and the path of surrender. The spiritual journey contains another paradox. The very desire to reach God can become an obstacle. When we follow the sad paths of our own desires, we often seek spiritual attainment as an extension of ego. True mystical realization, however, requires not the fulfillment of desire, but its transcendence. The authentic path involves a progressive surrender, letting go of preconceptions, expectations, and, ultimately, the very notion of a separate self that could attain anything. This surrender is not passive resignation but active receptivity, creating space for that which lies beyond our limited understanding to manifest. Beyond duality. At its heart, mystical realization transcends the dualistic framework of ordinary consciousness. The separation between subject and object, knower and known, seeker and sought, all these dissolve in the unitive experience. What remains is not a relationship between two entities but an undivided wholeness in which all apparent contradictions are reconciled. This non-dual awareness has been described across traditions: Advaita Vedanta's not two, Buddhism's sunyata or emptiness, Sufism's fana or annihilation in God, and Christianity's unio mystica. Though the conceptual frameworks differ, they point to a remarkably similar experience, one in which the separate self dissolves into a greater reality. The return from silence. If the mystical journey culminates in silence, what follows? The greatest mystics throughout history have not remained in isolated contemplation but have returned to engage with the world, now perceiving it through transformed eyes. Their silence gives birth to compassionate action, to a living that embodies rather than merely describes spiritual truth. Having touched that which lies beyond all distinctions, they participate in the world of distinctions with newfound freedom. No longer confined by rigid boundaries of thought, they move fluidly between the absolute and relative dimensions of existence. Their words, when they speak, emerge not from conceptual understanding but from direct perception. They become, in the words of the Zen tradition, fingers pointing at the moon, inviting others to look beyond the finger to the reality it indicates. The paradoxical wisdom. In embracing the dissolution of perception, we encounter a paradoxical wisdom. Only by letting go of our desperate grasping for spiritual knowledge do we open ourselves to that which transcends knowledge itself. Only in surrendering our certainties do we make space for genuine mystery. This wisdom does not invalidate the journey or render spiritual practice meaningless. Rather, it infuses the path with humility and openness, preventing the ossification of living experience into dead dogma. It reminds us that the ultimate goal is not to accumulate spiritual concepts but to be transformed by direct encounter with that which lies beyond all concepts. The living silence. And so we return to silence, not the absence of sound but the presence of something too vast for words. This silence is alive, vibrant with potential, resonant with meaning beyond meaning. It is not empty but full, not barren but fertile, not the end of the journey but its endless unfolding. In this silence, perception dissolves not into nothingness but into everythingness. The boundaries that once defined our experience expand infinitely until they no longer exist as boundaries at all. What remains is neither perception nor its absence, neither knowledge nor ignorance, but a living mystery that encompasses and transcends all pairs of opposites. This is the silence that speaks volumes. This is the unknowing that surpasses all knowledge. This is the dissolution that reveals not absence but presence in its most complete form. And perhaps, in touching the silence, we come closest to what it means to know God, not as an object of perception, not as a concept to be understood, not even as a separate being to be approached, but as the very ground of being itself, in which we live and move and have our existence.